Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this workshop where we're focusing on supporting and building relationships with your packaged food vendors. This webinar is hosted by the Oregon Farmers Markets Association. We support farmers markets across the state with training, advocacy, and promotion. And we have monthly meetups for market staff across the state, plus workshops like this. And we basically have something scheduled almost every week of the season, all the way through September this year. So you can check out our 2024 schedule online and see what's coming next. Here's some links to find more info on those things. We also have tons of recordings of on plenty of other topics from the past years too. A couple things about how our sessions work. We hope you'll be comfortable here in our online world. Please feel free to be off camera if that helps you attend. But we do love your participation. So please come join in to the group. Please ask questions, share what you know. Let us know how things are done at your market so we all can get new ideas. You can put comments and questions and affirmations in the chat. And we'll also let you know when we're going to have Q&A time and you can come off mute and ask away. And just remember that in all you do here, please lead with kindness to this community. These are your colleagues. We may be online right now, but these are the people you see in real life too. So talk, but also listen to what people are saying and leave time for others to share as well. Okay, today we're going to hear from Hannah Kullberg and McKenzie Phelan, both of whom have extensive experience as vendors and growing new food businesses. And I know we're going to learn a lot today. So here they are. I'll let them introduce themselves and say hello.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see familiar faces and new ones. I'm going to kick off a portion of the presentation and talk about resources and some really cool creative solutions to some of the challenges that I've seen. And then McKenzie and I are going to talk about one of my favorite local resources, the Good Food Foundation, and talk about a little bit more about farm direct sourcing and again, some really awesome creative solutions. So this is a big, just kind of a discussion, like creative solutions, resources, challenges. And so I'm super eager to, have this be conversational. And I guess I might not be able to totally monitor the chat when I'm presenting, but would love, questions and definitely have a couple of points for discussion at the end of both of the presentations. So I'm going to share my screen and get started on the first one.
Also, hi, everyone. I apologize. I'm a little bit late. I'm joining Hannah to present today and just couldn't get in the meeting, but we troubleshooted it. So nice to meet you all. Happy to be here.
Glad you're here. Awesome. Okay. This is my first time using Keynote, so I'm going to see if this works. Does that look good to everyone? And I'm at the very end. So little
Great.
Get all and then go from there. So I'm talking about supporting and diversifying the number of packaged food makers and products at your market and sort of ways that we can do it and what we have out there. So I'm Hannah. I work at the intersection of packaged food and food systems. And my roots are in building a business from farmers markets to national distribution. And we really used farmers markets as our key space of learning about our product, learning about our customer base, and growing our brand. I consider myself a connector and catalyst. So I've really spent a lot of time connecting packaged food businesses to resources and then catalyzing projects that support them. And I'm here today because I, again, see farmers markets as a key launch venue for these makers and a really critical part of their brand building. Here's an amazing brand built at farmers market, the Choice Kimchi. And these makers are a key part of our local and regional food systems. Farmers markets obviously are focused on farmers, which is amazing and important, and they're critical for our local food systems and resilience and the market flow. And but I also want to just lift up and highlight those amazing makers that are a piece of our beautiful puzzle that is local and regional food systems. And you all are that key connection point for those new emerging and growing food businesses. So I want to tool you all with some of the resources that I'm aware of, some of the projects I've worked on in the last few years, and just ways that you can support those makers uniquely, which is a whole different ecosystem, right, than the farmers support ecosystem. There's a whole different set of organizations and all of that. And it's what's really cool is that farmers markets are really one of those intersection points between farmers and food processors, makers, and it's really one of those awesome, valuable parts of as a farmers market. So yeah, I am wanting to highlight some of the service providers that I've worked with in the past, just to kind of give you some broad swaths of what's out there and my experience and sort of where I'm coming from, because I'm going to talk about some challenges and some things I've heard from product makers a little later. And I just wanted to sort of ground it in like why, where I'm hearing these things from and who I've worked with. So a big part of my experience after building our business for 9 years was working with the Getting Your Recipe to Market program and helping businesses launch new products. And it's a continued program that's really amazing. So if you're getting a maker that comes to you, or someone who's curious to start a business, that's a really good program to point them to. So, oh, you're considering doing this, here's a resource. And go check it out. And it's actually being subsidized now by the new Regional Food Business Center. So there's some scholarships for that program. I have worked a lot with Accelerate Women as an on-demand F&B coach, essentially. And I want to highlight them because they work statewide on Zoom and will support a maker who's, if they have like just a really just key issue point that they need to work through and need a marketing expert or an e-commerce expert or a social media person or a financial planner. Accelerate Women has these really amazing coaches that have been trained in working with women and underserved women in particular. And so they all have a really thoughtful approach to advising and coaching, and it's really neat, and it's subsidized by Business Oregon, so there's a low placement fee, but other than that, it's a really amazing way for folks to access expert coaching, and I point people in that direction all the time. And then I just want to highlight too that I'm on the Portland Farmers Market Vendor Success Committee, and so you'll see a lot of examples from Portland farmers markets, because that's been my kind of primary space that I've worked in. And so excuses if there's some really cool other things that are happening out there that I'm not aware of, I'd love to hear about them. So please do share with me. So one of the first projects I want to highlight is the Oregon Department of Agriculture has an amazing food and beverage makers roadmap. And the ODA, we know them as the licensing body, but behind their scenes, they're really trying to support both farmers, through their farm to school program, and product makers. And this is one of the resource sites that they've started in the last few years. And I got to help particularly on this food and beverage startup journey. So just like I said, for someone who's starting out, Getting Your Recipe to Market would be a good place, but actually probably first send them this PDF. It is a roadmap of really the curriculum that we take cohorts through and Getting Your Recipe to Market, with a bunch of links. So it's all these really thoughtful considerations and a really amazing resource that I want to just continue to tell people about, so that everyone's well aware. This site also has all the list of service providers and more on a regional level. So some that I mentioned earlier, and again, so much more. And you find that in the Explore Topics area. And then there's a bunch of expert articles. This is an example of one of them about food safety and licensure. But I'm a huge fan of the ODA and all the amazing work they do. And I'll speak a little bit more about them later. So with the ODA, I have been working on, sort of one of my other hats is I've been working on assessment, and I've met a few of you through that, of food processing and co-packing in the state. And because we had that aforementioned resource, we also asked on the survey, how do you find resources? And what's so beautiful to see is that 72% of the people said, I ask my business community. And there was a sort of similar open-ended question of, where, who, right? And confirmation, food, business community. I did a word cloud out of the answers, the comments. But I love to see, markets, probably it would have been a really big word if there wasn't for that S. But markets are one of those key places that food businesses come together in community and learn from each other. The vendor next to them or down the way become mentors and connectors to resources. And I just, really want to highlight markets for that key role that they play again in that. And how amazing that is that we have such a robust network in Oregon of farmers markets. So I, in the last 5 years, have also been hosting sort of an online version of, say, a farmer's market. And it's a resource sharing network that is a place where people come together in community, mentorship, connection. There's a buy, sell, trade function. And then I do a lot of advocacy because in this group, I'm constantly learning. And through all of the work that I do, I'm really listening a lot to themes in the shared experiences of packaged food makers in the Northwest. And so this is just a key resource I want to share to everybody. I have a membership model for it, but I make it like hands down free for farmers that are, say, making a packaged food product or value added product, and really just an open access model, because mostly I want people to be able to connect and learn from each other, and have received some awesome sponsorships to make that happen. At the heart of it, it's just a Google group. So it is for those who are more on email, for sure. This is just a screenshot from the other day, and you can see people are looking for a tea co-packer, food safety shift supervisor. They're asking a question about trademarking your business name, and who would be a good resource for that. Someone selling a van, someone selling tins, another person's asking advice about the Portland night market. Someone's seeking bulk vinegar. Another one's looking for a new tax preparer. So this is sort of what happens on there. And you can see it's a pretty busy, active community. This is just, across 2 days of time that people are on there. I also want to highlight that it is a resource where these businesses can come, similar to the ODA site, and search for resources. So there is almost 5,000 threads over the last 5 years of businesses sharing resources. It's a reply all culture. I really emphasize community over competition, and that we're stronger together in this space. And so there's a lot of just giving back and sharing. And so if someone's looking for a particular resource, there's, basically you can go in and search for it and learn, or you can learn about starting distribution with Market of Choice and see what people have said about that, or what does it look like to work with Beeline, or how do you get your product to Southern Oregon, or from Southern Oregon North, right? I mean, these are those sort of topics that are covered in this space. And then a few other resources I want to highlight. There's a little bit of repetition here, but I want to call out a few other organizations. Some of these I haven't worked as directly with, but do a lot to support packaged food makers. There is a food business center at Business Impact Northwest, and they also do loan readiness programs and a week annual Food Biz Week. That's really amazing. As I mentioned, I wanted to talk about the ODA again. They have a really amazing inspector network. And so a lot of people are afraid of their ODA inspectors. And I just want to say to you all that, if you're meeting a maker that's at that stage and are feeling a little wary, to just really encourage them that they're there to support, that they are actually in our tours around Oregon. We've heard from so many food processors how much they love their inspector and how much they've supported them in both their lunch and their food safety plans and just getting things dialed in. And there's a lot of grace. They're really there to support and not be scary. Also on that site, I meant to mention, if you have a farm that's, say, looking to move from doing farm direct value added to wholesale, and they need a commercial kitchen, there's a commercial kitchen list, and there's also a co-packer list on that ODA roadmap site. So again, it's a really great resource in that regard. For growing businesses and businesses that are looking to scale, Livelihood Northwest has the Increase Project, and Oregon Entrepreneurs Network has the Angel Food Program. The Angel Food Program is focused a little bit more on investors and raising capital. So if you know someone who's really, eager in that way, I would send them to OEM. And the Increase Project is really a strong business management fundamentals at that growing scale. And then for business that's starting out, MISO has a really amazing matching savings fund program. I'm not sure if they work completely statewide, and so maybe there's some other amazing programs that that are similar to that in your area, but in the sort of northern part of the state, I like to send folks there, because in CPG, you have to invest in your jars, your package, your ingredients, all of those things before you sell. So having cash infusions that this program and others provide are really key to growing and scaling, being able to buy things efficiently or get a key piece of equipment that will help with efficiency. And again, if this is sort of overwhelming, there's a lot of different programs. This is on the ODA roadmap site, and I am really always happy to be a resource navigator for a business that's eager to connect and learn in these ways. So yeah, just reach out. Something I want to also call out, I'm not really involved in this, but I think it's really important for us all to be aware, is the regional food business centers, the Northwest and Rocky Mountain region. So it's a big regional project, and we have some really amazing people involved, the Food Innovation Center, the OCFSN, and the Food Hub Network, but they are going to be having business builder grants come out in the next year or so that will be critical for all of the farmers and makers in your market. So being able to pass those along and get that amazing funding opportunity out to all of Oregon will be really amazing to kind of grow our local food ecosystem. So yeah, please, there's on the link for the site, you can join their newsletter and get the announcements about that. And if you know Lauren Gwynn or Amy Gilroy, they're our leads for the state. So we all know they're amazing humans. So I wanted to sort of give everybody some really great resources, show you I'm here to support, because I have some harder things I want to talk about now that, are a little, critical of the farmers market experience, and part of just the things I'm hearing on the ground from makers right now, and part of my own experience, and think about how we can, creative solve them, but know that I'm here with love and joy and to make things better for everybody. And I recognize that it's really a lot of work to run a farmer's market, and you have to wear so many hats and support so many different people at different stages. And yeah, and I think that's why it's so awesome that OFMA does these recordings. So again, my experience is rooted in farmers markets, and my experience is very similar to a lot that I talk to. And so I wanted just to share it from my perspective, and then open it up a little bit. But we built our business in farmers markets in the Portland area, but we were rejected from the Portland farmers market twice. We were not allowed to access that market, and the the foodies that attended all of those ones. So we had some really amazing market partners in Beaverton, like Oswego, Montevilla. We started at the Hollywood Farmers Market, and we're really able to connect with all of those amazing community. But I think it's this really important thing to consider about brand building, and how we provide access. Maybe there's even a tiered system, and I'm going to probably say that again, but something around that to really allow the businesses that want to grow in their local region to connect with folks. It was amazing for our business. We learned so much. We launched a product in collaboration with our regular market. We'd bring a different, version every week and be like, what do you think of it this week? What, wow, what would you change? And it was really a beautiful experience to do that. Overall, I think we did markets for 4 or 5 years. I did them sort of heavily for 3 years. We didn't break even across the board, right? We were there every weekend and we tried out a lot of markets as well, some brand new ones. This was a decade ago, and there was a lot of new ones starting out. And as I'll get into too, we didn't have necessarily like an essential product. We had something that was a little bit more optional and a little bit more expensive. And so it looks differently to show up at a market with only a few options of a product because you're just focused on launching that for your business and not being basically, fresh produce or eggs or bread. And I hit burnout. I got, totally burnt out. There's one point when it's like 14-hour day of, production, after, weekend of double farmers markets. And I had to go up to some sales trade show that I totally had a meltdown. And then that was like a big change point. But I hear that a lot from the food processors, the makers that I work with. And I think it's an important thing for us all to consider. So shifting into that, a lot of folks like to show up as themselves, right? They make more money, quote unquote, right? They can either put more money back into the business or they're paying themselves for operating the business as running that farmer's market, but they're also doing all the other hats in their business, making the product, marketing the product, distributing the product. So it's not at a point, it gets to be way too much. And so hiring staff becomes an important part of both growing in farmers markets or just making it sustainable over many years, right? Where it's still such an amazing place to show up, the community, the connection, and realistically, right, the sales. But what I'm hearing from folks now is that they're just seeing tremendous turnover. There's a lot of churn. They have to retrain over and over again. And they're not getting, when they post on job sites, they're not getting very good qualified candidates. It takes a long time to sift through people. And then really they have to start to pay quite a bit more, which is amazing because I want people to earn a good living, and doing a market is hard work. It's physical. It can be really cold at times of the year, windy, all the different weather things. And, but that again just impacts this maker. McKenzie and I are going to talk more about farm direct sourcing, but when a product maker is directly sourcing from a farm and they're paying well for that farmer, they're at small volumes, so they're paying a lot for their packaging, they're renting commercial kitchen, they're not making things efficiently, their costs are high everywhere, so their margins are much tighter. And how do we, it's just one of these conundrums we have in food of like building access to that product and charging what we need to charge for it and all the things. And so to pay that much more for staff is difficult. And I will say, at our business that had more of a growth trajectory, and I think there's other branded businesses that are at the same mindset. They look at farmers markets as more of a marketing experience and a marketing spend, in fact. And so it gets booked in accounting differently than as just a sort of sales venue. And I think that's an interesting thing to consider for some markets, that you really want to create access so you have low booth fees, but there are some businesses out there, not all of them, that would maybe be willing to pay a little bit more, again, to show up at a market and have it be a marketing opportunity for them. And I'll get into that a little bit more as well. So making the time worth it. I have talked to this a little bit, but purchase cycles of non-essential products or cultural sauces, right? You might not need a sambal every week, maybe not even every month, right? But it's such an amazing opportunity for that maker to be able to show up and share what they are doing and offering to the world. So is there a different cadence that could work for some of these product makers? The booth cost size. I remember at the Montevilla Farmers Market, I was there with my friend Heidi Lovig from Heidi Ho Cheese, and she opted for just a just an umbrella tent because, you know, it was like $20 less. And, you know, she was, again, selling a very unique product, only had a couple of offers. So the sales weren't as high as they are for a farm or a berry, you know, a berry vendor or something like that. And so she, wanted to reduce her costs of being there. And it was just kind of a funny experience for her because definitely it wasn't always great with the weather didn't comply. So I'm curious, you know, is there a space where there can be shared booths for emerging makers that, again, only have a really tiny setup and would only need to take up so much space? And I know there's probably other considerations about being seen, etc. But I guess the heart of that is, you know, how do we make space for emerging makers? I've heard a few times, particularly from pasta sauce makers, about how they would so love to be able to sell pasta, and they want to source it from Classic Food, who hand makes pasta, or get a special one maybe made by co-packer Relenti Pasta in Portland for their brand, but they're not allowed to sell that pasta because of farmers market rules. And I guess what I'm, asking and suggesting here is, can there be a little bit more flexibility so that it's just an easier yes for customers for that, amazing handcrafted pasta sauce to be able to say, here's your meal right now. Or can there be even, another vendor that they get put in, contact with? And then when they're at the farmers market and they're putting that effort of being there, they're going to probably have double the sales for their time. And again, making it more worth it to be there because the cost, the sales kind of balance in that way. So one of the tougher topics that I hear a lot of people talking to, along with rejection from markets, is that, like, I can't get into that market because there is another product of that same type, right? There's already the bone broth maker, there's already the kombucha or the chocolate. And I know this is a really dicey area because you also want to honor your tenured business. You want to honor that person that's put in the time and the commitment to being a part of the farmers market community and to their sourcing. And but I am curious, like, ecosystem question, how do we make space for new entrepreneurs, and when does a business transition out and maybe get too big for a market and make space for that next emerging maker? Or are there other creative ways to do this? I think that it's a key thing for us all to consider, because it's a regular complaint that I hear from folks who are really just trying to build their brand and build a sustainable regional business. I'll make a little comment from that same survey that I showed you all earlier. We were asking, what's your business goal? And the majority of respondents said, my business goal is to build a sustainable regional business, right? They're not trying to build a multinational business or something crazy, though some did want to do that. But, like, most businesses in our communities want to build a sustainable regional business, and farmers markets are a key avenue to do that. And so how do we really create that access for everyone? Markets aren't for everyone. There are a lot of food business owners that I've talked to who choose not to do markets because their parents, they work full time, or they have chronic health issues where the demands of a farmer's market are too much for them and might aggravate some of their conditions. So how, again, do we maybe create access points for them that are more easeful or flexible. Just again, recognizing the power of marketing of a farmer's market. And also, you know, I do a lot of co-packing work, and I've noticed that at some markets, products that are co-packed are not allowed. And I think that was probably, you know, a good rule back in the day, but I think there's more and more contract manufacturers that are working with local sourcing. And it's also sort of just like this access equity point where a lot of makers use co-packers because they've got full lives, busy schedules, kids, or they're farmers, or something else of the sort, where that really supports them in getting that product out there. And so if there's a little bit of just flexibility and opening up the kind of the mindset around that, I'd love to see that out there in the world. And I've spoken to this a little bit, but just this rejection and support concept, I just want to remind everyone that when someone launches a packaged food business or beverage business, it's really their baby, right? It's such hard work, and there's a tremendous amount of investment. And so a rejection is very personal, and not resharing a social media post is very, or, you know, story is very personal. And I've heard those. I've heard from makers that have, you know, really had hard days because of those kind of experiences of just feeling like the love is not shared for them. And so I just want to ask you all to be really sensitive in those moments, and think about the comments that are made on product reviews, or how you handle social media equitably. So to move into some rad examples and, you know, really
Hannah,
potential solutions. Yes.
a question just popped up, and I think it's a good one to go into before we go further, just because it's such a basic one. But what is the exact definition of a co-packer and co-packing and
Oh,
co-packed? What does that mean?
yes. Oh my gosh. And I'm, you know, I've got a whole presentation on that if anyone wants. And there's a lot of resources around co-packing on that ODA roadmap as well, but I apologize for not defining it. That is partnering with someone else for the production processing part of your product. So an example, actually, so here, this is Rajiv at the Bridges tent here, and he's a fitness coach and a full-time dad of 3 little ones. And he partnered with Community Co-Pack, which is an organization I'm involved in, to launch his product. So he helped formulate the products. He had the whole concept, the branding, all of that work of crafting and getting that product out there. But the actual processing part of it, labeling, case packing, that was done by the co-packer in-house and collaboratively. We had a kind of a different model where he would really show up and be present and part of those processing moments. But more traditional co-packer would have a whole line. So a lot of like jams and jellies are made that way. And you can get a lot of other products, but the majority of food products on the market, I would say, are made by a co-packer. A lot of the sort of private label that you would see at a Trader Joe's or a Costco, that's also technically a contract manufacturing partnership or contract packaging partnership. So working and contracting with someone else to make a product for you. I like to see it as collaboration. I've been doing sort of advocacy to open that up. And so there's a really amazing bone broth maker in Portland that's collaborating and co-packing for local farms to make bone broths for them. There's a dairy facility in Canby that's starting to do innovative dairy co-packing, and it's a key part of a lot of our brands in Oregon, that they focus, even like a piece of your process can be outsourced to that co-packing. So the amazing like Ruby Jewel ice cream sandwiches, if you all know those, they have their own unique recipe for the cookies made by a cookie co-packer who has the facility and the setup to do cookies, whereas then they actually make the ice cream and assemble the cookies in their own facility. But, you know, making ice cream and baking cookies in the same facility wouldn't work very well together because hot and cold. So I hope that's great, and I welcome any other questions around that. Thanks for interrupting me, Amanda. So yeah, some awesome examples of creating access. So this is one that I was involved in. Matt Choi is a good friend of mine before he passed, and we fundraised honestly a lot for his funeral from the packaged food community, and it just sort of went viral via the group that I shared earlier, and it really, you know, rocketed all of us. And from that, we've collaborated with the Portland Farmers Market, Choi's Kimchi, and our awesome vendor success committee. We started a grant in his honor that is supporting emerging makers to launch into farmers markets. And so it covers booth fees, insurance, tents, and signage, just to make it more accessible, and definitely prioritizing formerly historically underrepresented entrepreneurs. So it's a really neat program, and something to make known to new and curious vendors who may be applying to your markets. I kind of spoke to this a little bit before, but Build Oregon has a bridges program. This is being run at the Portland Farmers Market and then at Beaverton Farmers Market this year, where a series of different BIPOC vendors that are in the bridges program are getting to pop up at the market and sample and sell their product and build their brand. And a lot of these are like hot sauce and cultural sauce makers. These are salad dressings and sauces that Rajiv has, and it's helping them brand build and build awareness to what they're doing, whilst kind of all the amazing things that they do in their lives and their businesses. And many of these businesses also do co-pack, which wouldn't have been traditionally allowed otherwise, and are again busy humans. So it's a really neat opportunity for them. They also have products that have a lower sales cycle, right? So popping up and being able to connect with a community. I always tell everybody who does a farmers market, have your email list down, get the contacts of those excited people so that you can continue to connect with them afterwards. Build Oregon also has a program under Bridges to support BIPOC makers to access wholesale and pitch to local retailers, and an accelerator and mentor network. So this is another really amazing resource. And I should mention, the market role was very minimal in this case. Just sort of some meetings and making space to make it happen, but it's organized by Built Oregon, and the costs are covered by Prosper Portland, the economic development agency in Portland. Another amazing example that I just want to see more of is during COVID, the North Coast Commons, really part of this emerging Oregon Ocean Cluster initiative that is being led by Oregon Coastal Visitors Association. They came out as a collective, as a collaborative, and brought numerous farms and makers all together under one double wide booth. They had one amazingly super nice Sprinter van and dedicated staff for the booth, and the staff would show up, set up all these different products. And I mean, as you can see, they would sell out of a bunch of the sauces, and what they had fresh pastas and sauces together. Amazing, perfect. But it was just really beautifully done and created access for these makers that probably wouldn't have driven into the bigger market from the coast, and basically saving them time, making the money, building access. And the market role was a lower lift here, as far as I understand, and it was really just allowing this collaboration, because I've heard so many times at events and markets, you're not allowed to share a booth, you're not allowed to do this kind of thing, right? But where can we have more collaborative booths that are regional? I think it would be so amazing. so, thinking creatively, and this is really the end of my presentation for this part, and I'd love to just open it up into any discussion ideas for a little bit. I don't see the time while I'm in present mode, but I'm curious, where could we have more like regional maker guest booths? I know a lot of markets have like a community sponsored booth for community partners to show up and be there. A lot of Oregon's product makers, their first wholesale account that is sort of statewide is Market of Choice. They're an amazing organization that wants to work with small vendors, and they have a distribution program that's actually free and gets the product around statewide. So you'll drop it off to the nearest Market of Choice to where you are in the state, and then they'll get out otherwise statewide. And so there's a lot of makers that are traveling around the state to do demos at Market of Choices. So they're coming from Corvallis out to Bend, or they're going to Bend to Eugene or Southern Oregon, or up to Portland. Obviously a lot of Portland people going out statewide. And I think it'd be really neat to see, if there was an opportunity for them to pop up and build their awareness of the amazing work that they're doing, the amazing products that they have while they're out there already. And a lot of these makers will do this for events, and they probably pay 3 times the cost to be a part of a local event. And so could you have like maybe it's a slightly more expensive booth, but you get covered for your a little extra coordination time and making that available, and they get that opportunity to build in the local market. I've also heard of a couple of makers that actually love going out to the coast for farmers markets, and they say it's amazing. It's very product dependent, but it's amazing because there's all the tourists, and the tourists love to buy food products, so it was a shelf stable product. But I definitely see more and more makers traveling afar to access those brand building opportunities and sales opportunities. Oh, and one of the things, I've actually listened to several of these OFMA recordings, and I've loved them. And one of them I thought was so amazing and really inspiring to me was the conversation on consignment booths and all the examples from many of you. So I am no expert in that, but I would just want to say I'd love to see more of that. And how could those consignment booths, could there be a little, maybe a local grant program to get it staffed and offer it for more makers and community members, or just again have it there to provide access for those who are stepping into making a product. Obviously the sales wouldn't be the same, but for those the busy businesses or the moms that I mentioned before, maybe they can come drop off some product, but they wouldn't have the capacity to stay there the whole time. What would be that? So I'd love to hear from all of you what ideas you might have that could support local and regional makers with access and their business building, and anything that you'd want to discuss. So we can have a little question discussion time, and I'll actually just stop sharing. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, hey.
Hi. So I've actually never thought of this before, but the idea of doing like collaborative booth space, I loved North Coast Commons and what they were doing. But yeah, the idea of a collaborative booth space that costs a little less, and maybe having like similar product vendors kind of pitching into that booth space together and hiring one staff member to run it, like free vegan products that are maybe really small scale or something like that. Do you know any other markets done something like that? I think we have like spatial challenges here where we can't grow a ton and like add more vendors, but like eventually that could be something that works really well for us to add more product variety and more vendors to the market, while also giving product or food artisan kind of makers a chance to like lower their costs. But I've never seen anything like that outside of North Coast Commons, and it feels like not that crazy. of a thing to do. Maybe it would be hard for them to kind of get their things together to like hire one person. It might be a little confusing on the accounting side of things, but curious what your thoughts are, or if anyone else has tried something like that.
I love it. And I'm so glad that you're thinking that way, because I think that would be really, again, with Portland Farmers Market constraints, right? It'd be really a great way to bring in more.
I'm at
Oh.
Hollywood now.
Oh, you're Hollywood.
Yeah.
I was wondering. Cool.
Yeah, I'm at
Awesome.
Hollywood now.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
I've been out in Silverton, just, hiding out on the farm. So I'm a little like behind the scene.
Yeah, it's fresh. It's fresh. Don't worry.
But yeah, I think that would be really neat. And, I guess I'd say that there's more sort of collaboration happening behind the scenes, like the kind of hard part about that, about like people getting together. Like, I'd be totally willing to like, just sit with some folks and think about how to structure it, or, sort of build that trust. But I think there's a lot of collaboration happening behind the scenes. Folks are doing collaborative products together, collaborative giveaways. They're trying to show up in the like pop-ups in those ways. Again, same with like the vegan events world or the night market worlds. They're pretty strict on like, that's your booth, you can't share it thing.
Mhm.
And so I haven't seen that as much as I'd like to, right? So people are getting creative again in the like collaborative products and doing it that way. So I think there's really room for that, and that there's enough sort of trust that's been built all sort of in the ecosystem that would allow people to want to step into that. And again, enough sort of need also arising that, again, around the burnout and the staffing issues and costs, and then how amazing to be able to pay someone really well to show up for 3 brands. There has been some collaboration in demos where people are doing that, in-store demos, and sharing folks that way. So that is what I have seen.
Yeah, that's great. I also didn't think about the idea that that would allow them to pay somebody more. So I'm going to write that down. Thank you.
Totally. Thank you. Yeah, I'd be totally open to following on the thread.
Cool.
Yeah. Hire an amazing
Cool.
salesperson.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Lisa,
Cool.
do you have a question?
I was just going to kind of answer Kirsten's question a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, so at Monteville Farmers Market, we do allow like secondary products for a certain percentage of your display and sales. So we do have a few vendors who do that. I think it's a cool solution for some things, but honestly, having one person trying to sell 2 different products, just I think results in lower sales sometimes for both products a little bit. So that's just something to definitely like keep in mind of like sampling different ones and like trying to get people in, especially if folks are in front of your booth for one product, then you can't see the other one. And then so people passing by, it can be kind of harder to see a little bit. But another example was when we did the Fill Your Pantry events at markets. The come through booth was like two tents, but it was representing a bunch of different vendors from their market, which was pretty cool too.
Thanks for those examples, Lisa. That's really cool to hear come throughs getting out of just the red space too. I like to know that. I'll weave that in the future if I ever do this. So great. They're doing such awesome work for bringing folks into farmers markets and creating opportunity and building businesses. Love that organization.
I do have a question though, also. I would love for you to touch a little bit more on co-packing. In my mind, one of the reasons why markets don't allow products that have been co-packed is I think because it's like takes extra resources and extra steps to actually get to that co-packing level. And we have quite a few vendors who apply who are not at that level yet. And so it kind of like leaves more room for the businesses who are still, in the commercial kitchen stage doing it themselves. I think because there is that space constraint type thing, and like once someone who's once someone who's co-packing, they have a little, I don't know, they just become a little bit more of an established business, which is awesome. But then it's almost to the point where it's like, maybe that's not for the farmers markets. That's when you're able to like go into market choice, and maybe you're coming and sponsoring and tasting and whatnot. But yeah, but I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts and opinions about that a little bit more, because like I'm obviously not in that world at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right on, Lisa. I mean, totally around emerging businesses, and there is a cost of production around co-packing and being able to sort of afford that initial run and the volume associated with that. That's, I think there's a again, it kind of an issue in that an equity issue in that a lot of makers that end up doing sauces end up doing co-packing, because you have to get the better process control school certified. You have to, you know, send your product to the process control authority. So there's like a lot of additional steps to just doing that even on your own that are really costly. So there's a little bit of like weighing it out. Like, do I want to, you know, pay for the better process control school, go to that program for 2 weekends, et cetera, et cetera. Or would I like to partner, you know, with someone to make this for me? And so definitely, right, there are smaller scale makers that work in commercial kitchens that go through those steps. But I think that's why we see more of the hot sauces, the cultural sauces that are being made at co-packers. And I guess for me too, it's like, I think kind of historically around this, around like the Honey Mamas and the Brew Doctors and Dave's Killer Bread, you know, these brands that have been like launched at farmers markets and have grown into these, you know, big businesses that have investors and, you know, all the, you know, done the whole thing. And you know, how do we make sure that that's an equitable access of again, just the market and the people who care about local products and will buy local products. And the challenge of selling at a market of choice or new seasons is that you're lost on the shelf. And so those businesses are clamoring for opportunities to do samples, share their story, talk to people, build community, build advocates. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, the sponsored booth is interesting. I don't know what the pricing is at your spot, but the pricing at Portland Farmers Market is pretty expensive, right? So that's on next, you know, that's great for PGE. It's not great for you know, an emerging business, but you know, maybe they'd pay double. And I haven't run this by anyone, but maybe they'd pay double for that access. Again, the Bridges program is free and covered by Prosper Portland, and I don't know what they worked out cost wise, but that is, you know, just something where like it's like, okay, this is a little different than what we're doing. But anyways, I hope that does help you out. What I'm doing, I guess, also in the co-packing advocacy space is advocating for smaller scale co-packers that will work with makers at, you know, at different points. And so it's not the same super scale maybe as it used to be, and that there are a diversity of co-packers emerging. So again, like thinking about maybe that the farm that does meats might have a co-packed bone broth product, or I've met a couple of farmers that have a co-packed applesauce product. Like they sell apples, but they have a co-packed applesauce product. Or they're berry farmers and they have the jam that they've gotten co-packed. Some of the sort of like maybe the line isn't as hard as it used to be. So yeah. Cool. Well, we should probably transition into our next presentation, and I'll just say verbally, you know, I'm really excited that McKenzie, you might want to you're showing up as my name as well, so you might want to change your name so people know. But I'm glad you got in on the Zoom link. McKenzie is part of the Good Food Foundation, and it is another amazing resource that I point makers to all the time. And these are, you know, really a lot of the amazing ones that are in your markets now and are doing the commercial kitchen processing and all this like beautiful dedicated work of sourcing from farmers, and it really lifts them up. There's an awards program, there's mercantiles. Anyways, I'm gonna let McKenzie, I'm not gonna go into it so much, but it's an amazing resource as well to point businesses to and just to be on the radar about the organization. So I'll pass it to McKenzie and then I'll jump back in. But let me get the presentation up for us.
Thanks, Hannah. And thanks everybody. I'm McKenzie. If you wanna get in touch with me, I'll drop my email in the chat. But for now I'm showing up as Hannah, which is quite the honor. So yeah, I'm here today to talk about the Good Food Foundation. I'm working with Hannah because the foundation was actually awarded a grant in 2021 in collaboration with the Oregon Department of Agriculture to basically amplify farmers who are producing specialty crops. But we don't work directly with farmers, really. We trade in the business of like crafters and products and value-added products. And so through a myriad of different programs, we're trying to elevate products that have kind of the best locally sourced ingredients. They just happen to be specialty crops for the sake of this grant. But what I'm going to talk about is kind of our programming in general. And the reason I want to share it with you is just so that you can keep it in the back of your mind and think about ways for the folks that you work with to potentially get involved, because it's a great way to sort of elevate a product. But it's also just we have programs that make it possible for direct connections to be made with buyers and distributors. So I'll get into all of that. Hannah, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. The next, maybe two, please ahead two, I think. Thank you. Beautiful. So I can't really see anyone here, but I'd like to kind of, maybe hear some verbal cues. Like, does anybody know the Good Food Foundation? Are you familiar with our mission and some of our programming?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Super. So we've been around for just about 15 years. Next year, we'll make our 15th anniversary. And we started as really just the Good Food Awards. And after a few years, we started adding programming that we also thought that would enhance our mission. And that's really to just create platforms and opportunities for crafters using the best possible products in the most socially responsible way to get a higher market share, essentially. So if you can skip ahead, I'll kind of go through each of these programs. So the first we have is the Guild. The Good Food Guild is basically the group of crafters that we work with. So these are folks that pay an application fee. It's small, and it's also a sliding scale. So we work with people kind of relative to their size, nation C, all of that. And to join the Guild, you have to have a product that kind of meets our standards. And our standards are category specific. We try to not do anything too broad strokes. Like we have some rigor that we apply to the vinegars that obviously we don't to our cheeses, and vice versa. So there are 18 categories, and you have to sort of meet the mark. And they include both like the provenance of the goods that you're sourcing and also kind of the like social responsibility of the business. So like, do you have a diverse leadership team? Do you have good programs in place for mothers? But mostly we're really looking at the quality of the product. And so once you've joined the Guild, you have access to all of our other programs, including the Mercantile, which I will plug. We have a big Good Food Awards weekend coming up at the end of the month. And we'd love for everyone on the call to join. Our Mercantile is sort of something we call the untrade show. It functions much like a trade show. It's an opportunity for crafters to meet buyers, but there's no like hierarchy. Every table is exactly the same size. You can't pay for more space. If anything, like I said before, you can pay a little less just because we want you there. We want this to be a great opportunity for folks to meet their customers. And we've had all of those accelerators that Hannah had on one of her earlier slides. We've also run sort of accelerator programs that are free of charge. So the Mercantile is a great place for businesses of all sizes. And so this will be happening this year on Sunday, April 28th. And for the first time in Portland, we're including a public marketplace. So the Mercantile is industry only. It's just crafters and buyers, press occasionally, but we're opening our doors to anyone from Portland who's interested in coming. So it'll be much like a big farmers market where these folks can actually make sales that day with customers. And then I'll move on to the Alliance. The Alliance is a group of retailers who mostly what they do is they commit their presence to the organization. They commit to coming to these mercantiles. They also are financially, they like make up a pretty large amount of some of our revenue. Each person in the collaborative pays $5,000. And with it, they have access to these mercantiles and access to one another. And they meet 3 times a year to kind of think about things I'm sure you're all thinking about, like how can we like make there be less friction for these small businesses who want to end up on our shelves? How do we work together? How do we vet them? How do we, inform the Good Food Foundation on things that, we're not the expert in grocery. So they're really helpful to us as well in just being thought partners. And these are folks like Market of Choice, like Hannah mentioned, World Foods in Portland, but they're all over the country. So Buy Right in San Francisco, Zingerman's in the Midwest. And we're really lucky to have their engagement and also their wisdom sort of in the wings of everything we do. And then lastly is the awards, which is what most people know us for, is the Good Food Awards, because you can see the little seal that's in the bottom right of your screen. And you've probably seen that on packages, and maybe some of you have won awards or know people who have. The awards are really like the most public facing part of what we do. And it's a seal of excellence to really recognize all the hard work and the effort it takes to source according to our rigorous standards, to be a person in business who upholds our values. And we hope that, given our tenure, but, with much more time ahead of us, that this can be something that consumers recognize as like a real badge of honor, and also sort of a seal of quality. And so the awards are also coming up. They have moved from San Francisco, where we used to host the awards, to our new home in Portland. And that'll be taking place Monday, the 29th. We moved it to Monday so that more folks in the sort of broader food and beverage industry could join on their night off. So we hope to see you guys as well. And I'll follow up with some links to get access. But that's a little bit about the Good Food Awards. I'm a board member, and I also do a little bit of work for them. And so I've been involved with the organization since 2018, and just really, really love and respect what they're about. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer, but I'll hand it back to Hannah because we have actually some great stuff to cover in the remainder of the presentation. And actually, Hannah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have the better formatted presentation. If maybe that's a little bit type A of me, but I like the design of it.
Yeah, great.
Okay, great.
I am more than happy to do that.
And then that way, great. Slide it into view.
Yeah, and so why we're discussing farm direct sourcing, I mean, you all are experts in like key places where this all happens, right? Oh yes, much more beautiful. I did not get the fonts. I was like, why are these all weird? But I've also, again, working with so many different packaged food businesses, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh, I, wasn't able to get into, get applied to the awards or get into Whole Foods also, right? That's another organization with really strict sourcing standards. And so we really had this idea to support and start early around really talking through how to source directly from farms, because that's really, so much of what we want to see in the world, but also thinking about just that sourcing that would be in alignment with a Good Food Foundation and getting that award. So doing this education, sharing with you all, because you share back with your communities. And so kind of train the trainer vibes here, but also sharing this with communities of makers and the Getting a Recipe to Market program and all of that. So just want to start with a little bit of balance, but I know you all are beyond experts in this, but we're talking about farm direct, because when we talk about local sourcing, that can be, oops, you can go back to that one, sorry. Local sourcing can be a little bit more broad, right? It can be getting oats from Hummingbird Wholesale, but there's, that intermediary, or pureed frozen blueberries from Stallbush Island Farms. You're still sourcing generally locally, a local supplier. It's really awesome, but there's a whole other level of sort of dedication and challenge that comes with farm direct sourcing, which we are defining, and you can go to the next slide now, as really working, again, directly with that farmer, contracting directly with them, really bringing in that ingredient in its most raw form, and not working with a middleman. So definitely, kind of the opposite of the co-packing conversation, though some of these makers that we're going to highlight do co-pack as well. So it just really supports, again, smaller farms and diversity. So yep. We're going to talk about the challenges. So to start with the status quo, right? I've helped a lot of businesses in that launch phase, and sort of what we talk about a lot in a program like Getting Your Recipe to Market is, and then also a lot of these business accelerators, is they look at, like, how do you get your cost of goods down? How do you get your margin up? And how do you access, say, the whole, wholesale pricing? And a lot of businesses start out at farmers markets, right? Because they don't have the space between kind of what the market's willing to pay and the cost of goods, that they can only really be that one direct person. And then when you go into wholesale, you need to have space for distribution, a percentage for distribution, a percentage for the grocery store, right? Obviously a percentage for yourself, and it gets more complicated. And so there's always this conversation of getting the cost down. How that's often achieved is reducing the cost of labor and the cost of inputs, right? So that's your ingredients, your packaging, so buying in volume, reducing the cost of your ingredients, and then again, that labor, as I've said. So fruit and vegetable processing is super labor intensive. This leads businesses to avoid processing fruits and vegetables and sourcing instead pre-processed produce, which is a business of scale. An example for us at Better Bean, the business I started with my dad, is that we started out, when we were a much smaller scale, hand peeling our tomatillos and hand processing the peppers. And sometimes those would come from local farms, but then oftentimes the truth was that they would come from, Mexico, likely via our produce distributor. And it wasn't, quite the same as the makers we're going to highlight here. But as we grew, we ended up sourcing pureed tomatillos from a farm in California. It was much more consistent. It came in kind of that one way, but it was a much scaled up product. That means we're not sourcing this from a small farm. The business isn't, supporting really unique varietals getting processed into awesome products. It's the mainstream mechanically harvested produce, and that definitely has a space and a place. But how do we bring in, again, more diversity into our packaged food space and really support those who are doing things differently and upset this system? That's what I'm really curious about. So there are some challenges that come with this. One that I'm talking about is, you can go to the next slide, McKenzie, is the self-processing. So there's really no silver bullet solution here, but I want to highlight that if anyone you're working with, I really want them to get savvy and think about what equipment that they could have for their facility or the shared use commercial kitchen that they're in that could support them in that direct processing? Is it a continuous feed Roku, a dicer, a peeler, a pitter? Can you make these available? A lot of the commercial kitchens out there, they just have standard, the kind of the range, maybe a kettle if you're lucky, maybe a mixer, but having some of these vegetable processing equipment, fruit processing equipment would be amazing. Because I know there's some commercial kitchen folks on the call. But if you're advocating, talking to your local commercial kitchen, maybe share that with them. And then what we're, really sharing with the maker and what you can share with them is there's also really a ton of benefit to doing this. You have the constant game of social media. Right now you have amazing content all the time because you're maybe going out to the farm, meeting the farm, processing this beautiful produce, or maybe it's ugly produce that you're processing, but it's a fun story, and it's authentic, and you're building community. And so there's a lot of great stuff that happens there. But I'm really excited about some of the grants that are coming out that are those business builder grants and more of these food system infrastructure grants. Hopeful that we're going to get tooled as a state to have more processing equipment on the ground. I mean, again, that's sort of my lane that I work in. So my bias. Next slide, McKenzie. And then a big challenge that we're seeing is that harvesting windows are shifting. And so if someone's working with a farmer on cucumbers, say, right, and they're pickling, and they need to get those cucumbers just right at the right time. They have to be just the right size. Pickles are tremendously difficult, especially to fit them in the jar sizes, and they can't get too big. That maker needs to have a little bit more flexibility in their kitchen space, and that can be really challenging in some of our communities. Some communities don't have good commercial kitchen access. Other ones are really maxed out and they have like the 1 day a week that they can process. And so there are definite challenges in sort of the processing that product when it's ripe and it's ready to be processed. And so I want to offer a consideration of maybe there's a pre-step that maker can have. And this is an additional challenge if someone is working with a co-packer and needing to make something at more scale. I work closely with Sasha from Savvy Shrubs, and she'll be highlighted later, but she pre-processes fruit. She did a run for new seasons at a co-packer, and she had to pre-process the local Savvy Island strawberries because she'd buy a little bit at a time when they came in ripe, and freeze them and then get them out to the co-packer when it was time for her run. And so that could be, something that's offered in the community, or a solution for one of your makers, or maybe there's drying involved, or a collaboration with that farm. But basically you got to stay in close communication, and this is a big challenge that we're seeing and need more solutions around in the world. Okay, next slide. Next up, I want to just really highlight the makers, and this is really the most important part of this presentation, is just how some of these amazing people in our communities are making this work. I'm going to start off with highlighting Sarah Marshall from Marshall's Oat Sauce. I think she just went into her 15th year of farmers markets. She's done them all. She's an amazing woman, a master canner, and she tried to scale her business, right? She went the route of like getting a dedicated kitchen space. And what she realized was, wow, if I want to stay rooted to sourcing directly from farms and processing all this amazing seasonal produce, I need to do things a little bit differently. So she had an opportunity to buy a home with a commercial kitchen in it, lowering her kind of overall costs and taking control of that processing. And she really has this kind of special bit in that her packaging is really high end. It's super catch the eye. It's a very cute size. It's also, small too, right? So she can get a little bit more out of these smaller runs that she's able to do. And then, hand filling and just really small scale. And she's really mastered the art of sort of FOMO, basically, and creating excitement out of a collaborative product or a seasonal run. And I want to see more businesses sort of learning from her and being able to step into that, because it goes against what grocery expects. Grocery wants one product, the same product all year long on the shelf. How do we upset that? And farmers markets do an amazing job of that, and so does Sarah. Okay, next slide. Another one that you probably all are aware of is Hot Mama Salsa. Nikki is also a longtime entrepreneur and at the forefront of really partnering with farmers and growing unique varietals of peppers for her salsas and chili oils and hot sauces. And what I think is really amazing about her business model, and I point a lot of new businesses to it, is that she has 3 and now actually 4, because she's got chips as well. She made chips during the pandemic to go with her, to that whole pasta issue, right? She made chips to go with her salsa. But she is she's making hot sauces, chili oils, fresh line of kind of the regular salsas that are in grocery store for that regularity of grocery store sales, and then a salsa of the week. And so there's a diversity, so she can channel in what local farmers that she collaborates with into the product. She can put arugula that a farmer needs to move into an arugula salsa. She can put plums into one of these salsas of the week, and she's created this like excitement around the salsa of the week, so people come for it. They want to buy whatever it is just because. But then she can also make a shelf stable product and sell it more broadly, or have a waiting list for a seasonal run pepper that she's contracted with. It's a really neat model to weave in. Next slide. Holly from Sabeho is a really amazing local business that she works with Southeast Asian farmers, contracting to source really unique crops that are part of her Singaporean culture. She is really dynamic woman, and actually one of our clients at Community Co-pack. So she worked with co-packers her whole time. She actually had another one former to us, and has always made that choice because she was also running a store, doing pop-up dinners, building this awareness of Singaporean food, and all the unique flavors that it and meal styles that come from Singapore. And I think what's really neat, and I will highlight again that how she's made it work, working with those farmers and local pepper contracting, is that she has a product that is shelf stable, so she can do seasonal production and then sell it throughout the year, has a long shelf life. But she also freezes the peppers in season, and that's been a challenge in that she has to get warehouse and freezer space, and then with production it's a little bit more challenging because there needs to be a thaw process, but that allows her to stay true to the farm direct sourcing. Next slide. Oli Kraut is a business that is actually up in Olympia, but one that I want to highlight because they have a similar sort of business model, that they have a core product line that is in grocery, but then they do seasonal products just at the farmers markets that allows them to be a little bit more variable on their sourcing. And their key offering and kind of what has allowed their business to thrive in farm direct sourcing is they actually moved all the farmers that they were working with into a distribution collaboration with Organically Grown Company. And so Organically Grown Company came in as actually a key partner in terms of cash flow. So the contracting moved to Organically Grown, but it was the same relationships. And then they also supported the delivery, because that's another challenge in farm direct sourcing, right? Is like, where are you getting it? Who are you getting it from? Are you going to pick up? The next 2 businesses will highlight this, that there's a lot of coordination that comes. And so she's I think maybe almost like 13 years into her business. So over that time, she's learned how to strategically solve some of these problems with partners in the ecosystem. I also call out that she's working with an ingredient. So she does work with a fresh ingredient, and it's a fermented product. So it's always, fresh, but since it's cabbage, it has a long season and a long storage life. And just basically figured out that she can move east with the farms over the season and make it work all year long, just barely to get the local fresh cabbage in. So next slide.
Hey, Hannah.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know we have about 8 minutes left.
Great.
And a question did come in to me. It came directly to me, which is like the last one. So like you guys, you can put the questions in the chat to everyone. They don't have to come directly to me, by the way. But I wanted to let Hannah know what it is because I think it's a good one. But they're asking, like, how did farmers markets help? Like a lot of these vendors were in farmers markets. Did those markets do something to help make these farm direct connections? Or like, what can this person as a new market manager, what should they be doing to like?
I love that. Thank you for that
Happen?
question. And I have kind of a couple of slides later about like meeting farmers, and essentially that farmers markets are that key critical place, right? And I would put out the call to all of you to make that connection. Oh, neat. You have, and this Jessica's a great example. She's at farmers markets and she goes and she makes the effort to go and meet the other farmers at the market and work with them on sourcing parsley that she needs fresh. She prefers to work with small farms and get it in from those local farms. But for maybe the more timid or someone who's new to this type of sourcing, making the introductions, I notice that it's easier for like a product maker to talk to another product maker, right? Because they're same, they feel a little bit more comfortable. And then also at farmers markets booth, there's a lot of people. Who's actually the main farmer? Something I actually wonder often, or, who would be someone who could make a decision or would be a good contact at that farm. Just like the Good Food Foundation, they do a lot of support around sourcing for the makers that come in and aren't, they need a little bit more support in meeting the requirements of sourcing. They're like, here, let's think about how you can do this differently. A farmer's market can do that for new makers. And I think this is really a key, again, these businesses grew up in farmers markets, and that's a key part of their experience and a key part of their connections. If we choose to say not allow in the cookies or the jam because it's not sourced from local farms, that's maybe a missed opportunity. How could maybe they get a little bit of coaching or a connection? And I think there's definitely some of you that are already doing this, but to meet that farmer, to do that, or even, hey, we'd love to have you come in and I'd love you to spend this year meeting all the other farms and seeing how you can collaborate, because there's so much, I believe, again, I'm totally biased on food processing, but there's a lot of synergy that can happen because there's these creative humans out there that just love making jam, just love making baked goods, just love making sauces, and they get super creative with what they do. And they're like, wow, you have extra greens at the end of every market. Wow, I want to make a pesto and I'll take whatever greens you have. I don't care. And I'll start selling it here. I think there's a lot of magic that can happen at the farmers market when we really pair up the farms and the people who love to like process and make stuff. So yeah, that's what I'll say there. And just like one note on Jessica, how she makes hers work of sourcing from the super local farms that like can't maybe always give her all the bulk of parsley that she wants, is she fills in from a bigger local farm, like gathering together, but then prioritizes the other ones. The other thing she shows up for, and it's a big amount of work for her, is she's actually educating a lot of those farms that she works with. This is how much I can pay, but I don't need it rubber banded. I need it, wash dried in bulk. And they kind of work it out from there. And then she'll work out, like, if you're coming into town already, I can, you can drop it off here. I can pick it up from you. But it's sort of talking them through that wholesale process. That is also a piece of the puzzle that farmers markets can show up in, and understanding that you get a direct price at the farmers market, but you can move volume at maybe it might be a little just more easeful for some farms to move that volume at a little lower price, but again, maybe they don't have to bundle it all up, or whatever it might be associated with that. Sonia asked a question that is, so the certified commercial kitchen that may be interested in moving into a co-packer role. Sonia, I am so excited about the idea of commercial kitchens offering co-packing services. I would love to talk to you more about that. I would say that I feel like that's a whole conversation. I have a host of resources around that, like a Google Drive with various things about what it would look like to start a community co-packer and support businesses and be creatively thinking about that. I don't know if Holly's still on the call, but Holly is considering that at her kitchen. And so yes, they are, but I don't know of great examples sort of right now. I think we're at like the precipice of that starting to happen, is what I would say. And then, you know, since we are totally at time, McKenzie, do you want to put out, I know we'd like to get a little bit of data, and McKenzie has a survey for you all.
That is true. Hannah, could you click it and then put the link in the chat, just because this won't be clickable from your screens? Yes, because this is part of a grant that we're taking, we need to show that we received, we need to show that we've been able to share some of this content with multiple folks. And so if you could just take a very quick survey to say, like, I attended and I learned something. I mean, I always do, and I've done a few of these with Hannah. So if you just wouldn't mind taking a moment to do that, that'll help us like do our reporting so that we can hopefully receive future grants from the same group. But that's really it from my end. I'll let it go back to you, Hannah or Amanda.
I'll just say thank you. Thank you, Amanda, for this opportunity, and thank you all for your ideas and the work you do in our communities to support local foods.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah and McKenzie. It was great having you here today. And for all our attendees, we'll be sending out, a copy of the recording and all the links that were here and a lot of these resources. So thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you at another event coming up soon.
Thank you.